We go. All right, welcome everybody to the October 2021 5 Miles from Anywhere meeting. Okay, we are an international Sherlock Holmes Science Society, and I know pandemic's still going, hopefully starting to wind down, but we are going to continue to be a virtual society meeting on the first Saturday of every month. That's the plan right now. Okay, we may have a couple, I'll talk about that at the end, where we don't meet, but that we'll save that for the end here. So the agenda for today, I've just got a couple of announcements, and then really the main thing is the talk, where we're going to get the art of Jerry Margolin. And when I say art, I mean the art he's collected. Okay, and over or close to 4,000 pieces of Sherlock Holmes artwork collected over 50 years. So that's very exciting. Brian, other board member, my brother, wanted to apologize that he could not make it today. He is at the Upper Valley Comic-Con today, which has a couple other Sherlock Holmes artists, I understand, who are in the comics field. That's where he's going to be. He's very much looking forward to the recording, and he sends everyone his best regards. And then lastly, most of you, probably all of you know, later today in a couple hours is the 2021 BSI Trust Lecture. Roberta Pearson, professor of film and television studies, is going to be giving the talk, The Adventure of the Mutable Detective. And that talk, you have to register in advance, but I just checked before I got on with Jerry here, and I could see that the registration was still open. So when we get done, I'm guessing they'll keep it open until the talk starts. You could jump on, register for it, and I'm sure it's going to be an awesome lecture, and I'm looking forward to that. I'm sure most of you guys are. All right, I told you I'd be quick. So here he is. I'm so excited. Jerry Margolin. He has been a BSI since 1977 as Hilton Cubit. And as I said earlier, 50 years or more collecting Holmes art, close to 4,000 pieces of art. I'm really excited he did this. He's made it known to me lots of times. He hates public speaking, and yet here he is. He's got his co-pilot Judy next to him, helping him here. And I'm in a second, I'm going to stop sharing here, and I'm going to let him take over. You should be able to unmute yourself, Jerry. So you should be good, and then you can share the screen, and you have the floor, my friend, okay?
All right.
So everyone, a round of applause for Jerry here.
Oh, okay. I've got my wife here, Judy, St. Judy in the BSI, known as, to go ahead and get my screen up. Do I need to do anything else?
Only if you want to play it.
What? Which one?
You can
Play?
play.
Okay. All right, there we go. And no, I'm not going to show you all 4,000 pieces. Okay, well, anyway, for those of you in this meeting, your Sherlockian world is peopled by such legendary names as Gillette, Rathbone, Cushing, and Brett. I also, of course, know and revere these actors who have played and furthered the cause of Sherlock Holmes. But when I step into my home and look around, my Sherlockian world contains the faces of actors who stand a few inches high, have sometimes odd-shaped noses rather than the familiar hawk-shaped profile, and say things like "suffer and succotash," and "it was a dark and stormy night." I'm speaking, of course, of the world of cartoon characters, a world I have lived with since I became a collector of things Sherlockian some 50 years ago. The era of Sherlock as a comic strip character began around 1904 in the guise of Padlock Bones and has continued nonstop for about 117 years now. The amount of cartoon people that have portrayed Holmes-like characters would take a lot longer to list than I have in the minutes today. Some are not well known and have come and gone quickly in newspaper strips and early comic books. Others, such as Mickey, Goofy, Snoopy, Popeye, and Huey, Dewey, and Louie, have become as well known for portraying the famous detective as the men first named in my opening remarks. These characters stand out mostly in newspaper strips, as in the case of Mickey, who had his own strip, and Popeye, who appeared in a strip called Thimble Theater. They and others went on to have their own comic books and then appeared in cartoons, both in the movies and later television. Anytime the theme of a story had a mystery, invariably there was a mouse, a duck, or some other unlikely creature wearing a deerstalker and holding a magnifying glass. What I have today are a selection of pieces from my collection. Some are commissioned work, some are published material. And I'm going to start off with a couple of pictures of the chaos that is my Sherlockian library. It used to hold around 10,000 books. I sold my book collection about 16 years ago, but continued on with the artwork. Here's a first look at one of the walls, and including the main wall, which has the Paget and Steels and some other very rare pieces. This is what it looks like when you enter into the room. Bookcases still exist there with some Sherlockian material and other book collections that I have. So here you get a couple of different views. Okay, and literally there is stuff on the floor, around the walls, sitting on the floor. There's about 100 or more pieces framed on the walls in just this room, and the rest of the house has another 200 or 300 pieces framed up around every room of our house. The rest of the material are in a lot of those portfolio books you can see on the right lower corner there. There's about 30 portfolio books filled with all different types of material. I'll start off here with the what I like to call the crown jewels. Sidney Paget did about 456 drawings for the Holmes stories. Sadly, there are only about 30 existing in the world. I have been so fortunate. I've owned this piece for over 40 years now. It is from The Resident Patient. And next to it is a Frederick Dorr Steele drawing from the Musgrave Ritual. This is not the final published version. That's owned by another collector. And there are some subtle differences between this one and the final published piece. I'll start off this portion. This is a drawing by Charles Doyle, Sir Arthur's father. And if you'll notice at the top, he included the fairies. This was done while he was in the insane asylum. And it was done for a series of greeting cards that he was doing. Of course, he illustrated the Study in Scarlet Beaton's Christmas Annual. Next is a drawing by his son, Arthur Conan Doyle. We've heard of him. And this one is just, he was a doodler. This was one of a series of doodles that he did, and it is signed on the back by ACD, which strangely he had crossed out. I'm not sure why he did that, but the lettering is still there. This is by Peter Newell. It was done for a book by John Kendrick Bangs called Pursuit of the Houseboat, which was published in 1897. This is the original, signed and dated 1896 by Peter Newell. And if you look in the lower left-hand side, the gentleman with the white hat on is Holmes. And it's one of only 2 drawings in the book that actually show Holmes. The other is the frontispiece. This I found on eBay. I was the only bidder, and no one knew what it was. It wasn't under the title of Sherlock Holmes, but I happened to recognize it and was fortunate enough to bid on it and get it. This was a drawing done by Edgar W. Smith, who was the head of the BSI up till 1960. He took over from Christopher Morley. There is a Moriarty drawing that he did, also owned by another collector, who sadly will not sell it to me. I've asked a number of times. This is definitely taken after Frederick Dorr Steele's drawing of Holmes. This, if anyone is a comic book collector, they might recognize the cover of the Classics Illustrated comic book. This is the only known remaining original art from that comic, and I own the interior stories as well, Speckled Band and Study in Scarlet. If any of you are familiar with the name Will Eisner, he is one of the, for me, the Mount Olympus gods of comic art. And this is the only known drawing that he ever did of Holmes, and that's, of course, his character, the Spirit. And this was done for the UK Comic Art Convention in 1987. He was the guest of honor, and he did this for their program. I looked for years after obtaining this to get the program. And I finally found a gentleman who said, oh, I have 12 of them up in my attic in mint condition. How many would you like? And he sent me 2 of them, one of which is on the back of the frame, and the other I keep in a collection. Again, John Romita Sr., who was one of the creators of Spider-Man, I asked him, through a friend who was his agent, I asked if he would do a drawing of Spidey as Holmes. And it took a very long time. When I finally got it, Romita included a letter apologizing for taking so long and asking if I minded that he had done it in color. I quickly wrote him a note back that said, no, thank you very much. I didn't mind at all. That's one of the earliest pieces I've obtained in the collection. One of my other passions is Batman. This is done by Shelley Sheldon Maldoff, who was he worked with Bob Kane in drawing Batman back in the 30s and 40s. He did this for me, and he included it, my Batman that I grew up with. Gan Wilson, if you're familiar at all with Gan was a good friend, close friend of mine for about 45 years up until his passing in the last couple of years. I own about 20 of his originals, all Sherlockian. This one is done for the book Isaac Asimov's Sherlockian Limericks. And it took me quite a long time to obtain this from a collector who I had an annual question for him. I would come in and say hello, and my next sentence would be, do you want to sell the Gan Wilson? And he would say no, and we would move on to other things. And then finally, one year I asked him the question, and he said yes. So this now hangs on my wall. And Isaac was also a good friend. He's also was a member of BSI. This is a drawing that Gan did of me and Holmes together. And Gan had asked me to send him a recent photo of me. This is several years back. And when I finally got it, I didn't have a full beard in the pictures that I sent him. So I called him and I said, Gan, why did you give me a full beard? And he said, I thought you might need the hair, which was kind of correct, sadly. But the quote on is amazing, Margolin, how your tender care has gentled the Hound of the Baskervilles. This was done back in about 1957. Gan did a whole series of cartoons for Playboy. Several years back, Playboy held an auction of their artwork. And myself and 2 other collectors went in together. There were 3 of the Sherlockian drawings up for auction, and we won that lot. And then we got we drew lots to see who would get first pick of the three. I got the third pick. I got this piece, which I love. It says, "Good Lord, Holmes, you are a master of disguise." And there's Holmes on the right-hand side. The next picture is the one I actually was hoping to get. So I called Gann and I said, "Gann, can you redraw that for me?" And he did. He redrew it down to the last pen stroke. And I keep kidding the friend of mine who owns the actual piece, that mine's signed and his isn't. Now this one, you'll have to use your Sherlockian deductive ability. If you can figure out who the killer was. The quote is, "I'm sorry, Inspector Lestrade, but for reasons which I confess are sentimental, I feel I must, just this once, decline my services to Scotland Yard." And if you can take a look at the picture closely, you may be able to deduce who the killer was. And then some years later, this appeared in Playboy. That was also Playboy. This was the second piece, and it says, "It's a case I wish I'd never solved, Watson." And I called up Gann and I said, "Gann, I have to have this to go with the other one." And he said, "What other one?" He hadn't remembered that he had done it. And this was the result. I have them framed together. Plus, on the back of this frame is the original pencil rough for the arrest of Santa Claus. This one I've always considered, and most people have considered, the Sidney Paget of the cartoon world. This is probably his most famous cartoon. It says, "Would you care to step out of the shop and see how it looks in the fog, Mr. Holmes?" And along with it, when I got this from Gann, he sent a letter that detailed his first trip to London and his first time dealing with the pea soup thick fog. So I have them framed together. Will Elder, who was one of the original artists for Mad Magazine, was also a very good close friend of mine for over 40 years. He did a few for me. Of course, he's famous for Little Annie Fanny in Playboy, which I'm sure no one has looked at. And this is another one that, "Last Watson, we're on the right track." Will had a very strange sense of humor, and he would have to, being a cartoonist for Mad Magazine, of course. I did not include the Annie Fanny in this selection, but there is one on my wall. The next gentleman is Luis Dominguez. In 1977, there was a magazine that came out called The World of Sherlock Holmes. There was only one issue, unfortunately, because it was a really great magazine. This is a pencil rough for the original cover, which is owned by another friend of mine. This is one of the interior drawings that he did. Sorry if some of the pictures aren't clear. Most of them are taken through glass. This is the cover of what would have been issue number 2, and which unfortunately never happened. But around the frame of Holmes are all scenes from different cases. You have the Hound on the left side, Moriarty, Hansom Cab at the bottom. This is another piece which we think was for the second issue, but again, never saw publication. And this one did appear in the first issue. And of course, it's after Paget from Scandal in Bohemia. This one I owe to my wife. I have to thank my wife for this one. A good friend of ours who now lives in Seattle was a graphic artist and designer. And she had, unbeknownst to me, had him do a drawing of me when I was sadly much younger and did have a full beard at those times, of me and Holmes. My favorite Holmes is Peter Cushing, so he modeled the Holmes after Cushing. And it is all done in pointillism, which is just dots. It took him months to do, but it's an incredible piece. And I'm very grateful for her thinking of me to add more to the collection. This was done for me by Charles Schultz. Steve. This is Steve Mason's favorite piece. I called Schultz in those days. I'll call anybody or write to any artist. I figure the worst they can say is no. So I called his home, and I got his wife on the phone, and I said, could I speak with Mr. Schultz? And she just said, oh no, honey, he's not home. He's at his studio at 1 Snoopy Plaza. Here's his phone number. So I called over there and spoke with his secretary, personal secretary, and explained about the collection and asked if he would do a Snoopy for me as Holmes, which, as you can imagine, he got thousands of requests, but he happens to be somewhat of a Sherlockian, or was, unfortunately. And he drew this for me and sent it out to me about a week or two later. This is Ralph Stedman. If anyone has read Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, Ralph Stedman illustrated all of the books. And I was after something from Stedman for about 30 years. I finally tracked him down. He's a reclusive person, but I got a hold of a gentleman in Kentucky, of all places, that was his agent. And he said, yes, he would do it if I contributed to his favorite charity, which was something against torture in Africa. So I gladly did this. And this says Sherlock Holmes without a clue. And if you look in the lower right-hand corner, you'll see the dead body that Holmes does not notice. This is an odd one. This I found on eBay. It says Sherlock Holmes disguised as a policeman from 1913. But strangely, the face, if you look at it, looks like Conan Doyle. No idea what it was done for. I'm thinking some kind of magazine or newspaper at the time. This Gus Mager is responsible for Hawkshaw the Detective. But before there was Hawkshaw, there was Sherlocko the Monk. And this is one of only, as far as I know, one of only 3 existing pages from 1912 with Sherlocko the Monk. And about the 1940s, he became Hawkshaw the Detective. These next 2 pieces are really have a place in my heart because they are fan art. These are people like myself who in the 1920s and 30s wrote to Gus Mager and said, could you draw me your character of Hawkshaw the Detective, which is full circle for me, getting these and coming to write to an artist or call an artist and ask him. I also have the letters that go with them. The first one in color, this one was interesting because it was done by a woman who was in an asylum. Oh, I'm getting a note here that says Ron is requesting remote control of my screen. I have no idea.
Just decline.
And I can't, let me see if I can. I want to decline it, but I don't have my
Go back, escape.
Oh, there, okay, maybe that'll do it. I have no idea what that was. Maybe he liked the exhibit too much. Anyway, yeah, this was written by a woman who was in apparently an institution of some sort of mental institution, and she wrote to him from there. And I have the letter that goes with this as well. Oh,
Can you not click?
oh, wait. No, now it's not working. And I don't have my mouse.
Oh, press escape. Oh, dang.
Technical difficulties, Jerry?
Yeah, that whatever that was apparently has now screwed around with my thing and I can't escape out of it.
You want me to stop the share and then you can go back in?
Yeah,
Let's
go
try
ahead
that.
and do that and I'll try
Okay.
that again.
Let's try it. Let's give it a try.
You could, can you stop the share? Okay.
Oh, okay, there, it looks like we're up again, but I don't have control of it.
Yeah, you do.
No, I don't, because I can't see anybody here.
Oh.
I don't know what's going on. I'm
Can
dead.
you see?
Can you see or hear me?
Yeah, we see you, Jerry. We're all
Okay.
here.
Okay, I've lost you guys. I haven't seen anything else, so.
Yeah.
I
Can
don't know
you-
why.
Try hitting the share screen button again. Let's see if that'll help.
I can't because I have no mouse.
Oh, you have no screen?
I have no cursor.
That I'm not sure about.
Yeah. I
Oh,
know.
one sec.
Press escape.
Eric, I for some
Oh.
reason, somebody took remote control of his, which you had it evidently enabled to do. So is there a way that you can stop that now?
Yes, give me one sec.
I don't know who Ron is.
Okay, I put it down to one participant can share at a time. Let me try. So why?
Maybe make Jerry a co-host and then.
Oh yeah, let me try that. Good idea. Okay, Jerry, I made you the host.
Okay. I
Did
don't
that
know.
help?
No, I still don't have a cursor and my mouse is, let me try escape.
Okay,
Okay, there we go.
got it.
Yep.
We're back in business. Okay.
Now let me go back to play here. Okay, well, I still don't see you guys. And once I do that, I lose my cursor again.
That's okay.
But let's see if we can continue on real quick here. Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
Yeah, we
Okay.
hear you fine, Jerry.
All right, I'll go ahead and just continue on without seeing you guys. So, okay, this is.
Can you share your screen again? Jerry, we don't see your screen. Can you share your screen again?
Let me escape. I'll have to do it this way,
Okay.
but I can't share the screen now for some reason. Once I escape out to get control back of my cursor, I don't have any way to share the screen.
Can you minimize it?
I can try closing my keynote and going back again.
Give that a try. Let's see if it works.
Quit out here. Okay, there you are.
Okay, everybody's there. Now share your screen again.
Now let me try sharing the screen again. Okay. Where am I? It's not here.
I have to, could you quit keynote? Oh, stop it. And you have to open up your minimize
Oh,
it.
okay. Ah, don't you love computers? Okay,
Open up your PowerPoint.
trying this again. Sorry about folks, whoever Ron was. Okay, no. We hit play.
Can I see it?
Can you see this?
We're not seeing your screen yet. Did you hit the share screen button?
No, give me a minute.
I
Go
don't-
back to,
I don't have a share screen button, unfortunately.
Should be probably at your bottom.
Yeah,
Next-
it's not.
hold on. I have to intervene.
That's fine.
Try
Thank
that.
you, Judy.
That's why
No.
that's why I have her here.
Not a
There we go.
problem.
That's why I have her here.
Okay,
We're good.
There
excellent.
we go. All right.
Cool. We're
Let
good
me
now,
hit-
man.
Let me hit play here. And there we go. Is this okay now?
Perfect.
Perfect.
All right, great. Sorry about that, technical difficulties. Okay, just to continue on, this is a drawing by John Entwistle, who was the bass player for The Who. I'm a Who fanatic, so I was glad to get this. This is a piece that was done for a poster in England that was sold for charity. And it's Holmes, it's Pete Townsend as Holmes breaking a violin instead of smashing his guitar as he used to do. It is also on the back signed by Christopher Entwistle, his son, which attests to the fact that this is work done by his father. This is Harvey Kurtzman. Harvey and Will were, of course, the early artists for Mad Magazine. I met Harvey at a comic convention here in Portland, and he did this drawing of Holmes for me, with Dr. Watsis and mentioning Artie Morty. And this is another mad artist, Sergio Aragonis, who at the time was responsible for drawing Alfred E. I'm a huge fan of Alfred E. Newman, and Sergio was a friend who, anytime he vacationed in Tahiti, used to send me postcards of him in a grass skirt waving at me. Now, this is by Ray Alma, and Ray, unfortunately, of course, Mad Magazine is no longer being published, but at the time, Ray was responsible for Alfred E. So he did this. I met him at a comic artist convention here in Portland. This one has a special place because Jimmy Stewart is one of my favorite actors. I wrote to Jimmy Stewart and asked if he would do a drawing of Harvey in a Sherlock hat. I got his address through a friend of mine who was a big autograph collector. And about a week later, I got this drawing back that says Harvey in a Sherlock hat, James Stewart. Sadly, about 6 months after this drawing, Jimmy Stewart passed away. And Dr. Seuss. Now, the Cat in the Hat portion is printed on his stationery. I wrote to him and asked if he would do the cat in a Sherlock hat. He sent me this, and strangely, he added a hypodermic needle and wrote "Quick Watson the Needle" and signed it. You can't see the signature, but underneath his actual signature just says Dr. Seuss. So after he passed away, I took a photo of this and sent it to his widow many months later and asked if she would verify that this was his work. And she sent a letter back verifying that he did draw that, and that is his signature. The letter is on the back of the frame. For those of you who are familiar with Basil of Baker Street, not the cartoon, not the animated version, the actual book version by Eve Titus. Eve was a longtime friend, and she put me in touch with Paul Galdone, who was the original artist for Basil of Baker Street and all the Basil books. The one on the left was done for another collector. I got it from Marv Epstein's collection. Marv was one of the great Sherlockian collectors. And Galdone recreated the actual frontispiece with Basil in his dressing gown. When I wrote to Galdone and asked him to do the same exact drawing, I asked him, though, to put Basil in Deerstalker and Inverness. So I was able to acquire the other one done from Marv's collection, and they now sit side by side on the wall. This one is done January 2, 1913. It's a political cartoon done for the Indianapolis News. And the Holmes is fashioned after William Gillette, who was, of course, on stage at the time in those years. I'm not sure what the politics were of this, but it said Sherlock Holmes, quote, "I deduce, Watson, that these open-faced envelopes contain bills." So I have no idea. The artist is a gentleman named Ralph Wilder, and I've never been able to find out anything about him. Now, as I said, Peter Cushing is my favorite Holmes. So I had two different artists who strangely came up with basically the same drawing. Clay Sayer and Rob Moran are two of the big comic book artists. This one by Carl Crichlow, a British artist, was done for a collector card, a set of collector cards. And I got in touch with him and asked if he had both the original art for both, and sadly he only had one. So I bought the one that he had, and then I asked him if he would redo the second one that he had already sold. And he had one last piece of paper of the original paper that he drew it on, and he recreated the piece down to the last detail. And I think this might be the last slide. I'm a huge Rocky and Bullwinkle fan. And what these are, the one on the right, the black and white of Rocky and Bullwinkle, were done by the first, Bill Hertz, the first director and illustrator of the Rocky and Bullwinkle show. The one on the left, the color piece, is done by a gentleman named Gerard Baldwin, who has passed away at the age of 85. He was the last director and artist of the Rocky and Bullwinkle show. And he was originally just going to do Boris and Natasha, but at the last minute, I asked him to add my favorite character, Fearless Leader. So he put those all together. And I think that is it. So I hope you enjoyed it. I always enjoy showing it. And my last statement is anyone who finds themselves in Portland, please knock on my door, get in touch with me if you know you're coming this way. I love to show the collection to anybody, any Sherlockian who stops by. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Derek. If anyone has questions, let me know.
Do you want to stop sharing?
Yeah, how do I do it?
Just press.
Could you stop sharing, Jerry? Because I made you host. So
There we go, got it.
thank you
Got it. There we
very
go.
much. I will. Excellent. Appreciate it. I am sure we've got about 15 minutes for questions. If anyone would like to ask Jerry a question, you can just, I would think at this point, you could probably just unmute and jump in. But even before then, let's just give him a round of applause, virtual applause. That was phenomenal.
I hope I didn't bore the hell out of you.
You certainly did not.
Okay.
I would think Jerry, a special thank you to your IT department too.
Yeah, oh yes, my IT
Yes.
person. St. Judy is not called St. Judy for nothing.
Does anyone want to jump in with a question? I've got about 1,000, but if anyone wants to jump in.
Yeah, I have one. Jerry, have you ever? I know you buy a lot of the pieces, but have you ever traded for one? Like, I'll give you this for you give me one.
I'm trying to think back over time. Probably once or twice, but not very often at all. I have sold material out of the collection over the years, here and there. The Paget, I had 5 steels. I sold 4 of them to get the Paget. I'm now back up to 3 steels. I recently purchased the Slavering Hound by Frederick Steel that was up for auction about 2 months ago. It was an incredible bidding experience. So I added that one, and then I found one on eBay that was done for a friend of Steel for his book plate. And I was able to get that off of eBay. But trading, not so much, but I think I've done it once or twice.
I thought I spotted an Al Hirschfield in one of the wide shots of the room. Is I correct?
Well, that's an unfortunate story. I do have a lithograph. I don't collect. I have maybe 3 lithos in the whole collection. I don't collect. If it isn't original, then I don't bother with it. But Al Hirschfeld is one of my all-time favorite illustrators. And I called him up. I got him on the phone when he was 98 years old and talked to him and asked if he would do an original for me. And he said he would love to, but under contract to the Margolin galleries in New York, he is not allowed to, was not allowed to do any outside work that did not go through the gallery. So I unfortunately, but on the upside, I got to talk to Al Hirschfeld for about 20 minutes on the phone. So all in all, it was a win. But no, that is a litho of Rathbone and Bruce. And strangely for that, you know, if you're familiar with Hirschfeld, he puts the word Nina throughout his posters. This has no Ninas in it. Which is odd because he usually puts the number down in the lower right corner and there aren't any. Anyone
Jerry,
else have any? Yeah.
I was just curious, you have so many wonderful pieces, and we only saw a small sliver of them. Is there any piece that got away from you that you wished you could have, but it just didn't happen?
Yeah, there's one that's a thorn in my side, and sadly, there's only 3 existing that I know of, and they're all owned by private collectors. Robert Fawcett, who even if I was offered one, I probably couldn't afford it. They go, his work goes in the tens of thousands of dollars. But there are 3 collectors who are friends who each own one Fawcett, Sherlockian painting. So yeah, that's one that didn't ever get away from me. I've never been able to get one. And of course, I've lost some in auction where I've gotten outbid at auction. So the answer to the question is yes, there are several that have gotten away. Any piece that I can't get is a sad one that I can't get.
Other questions for Jerry?
This may be a little indelicate, so don't answer if you don't want to.
I'll go ahead and ask away. I'm not delicate.
But what is the highest price that you know of that's been paid for a cartoon like this? I won't say maybe that you specifically bought, but just.
Well, a lot of the early, I mean, you talking about strictly Sherlockian?
Yes.
Well, I know what I paid for some of them. But they get up and some get up into the many thousands. I've seen a couple of Sherlockian pieces that I haven't been able to get because they went for 8, 9, 10,000. I've been known recently to bid fairly crazy for one piece that I did get, which is why I haven't been buying anything else for quite a little while now. But it was well worth it. The Will Eisner piece, I will tell you, that I was bidding at 2 o'clock in the morning on eBay. And there are times when I will tell my wife, this is a gotta have it, must have piece. And she will just nod her head. The Will Eisner piece, I put a bid on it of $8,000 as a max bid and hoped that no one kept bidding to find my max. And fortunately, they did not, and I got it for quite a bit less than that, fortunately, much to Judy's thrill.
Thanks.
But
So how much of Judy's jewelry have you actually hawked to be able to buy out?
well, I've actually brought her to the pawn shop.
Wait, he's actually cashed in wedding bonds.
Well, I will speak up and say for somebody that has visited Jerry's house 2 or 3
Steve's
times. And I actually sat and looked through all 4,000 pieces. I took the grand tour, and I've also bought pieces from Jerry to help him his habit of buying other pieces. So I would definitely recommend if anybody gets a chance to go up there. It's an amazing collection to go through and just look at, and you just have more and more flashbacks every time.
Well, it was great to have it, which you have to do again, Steve, because there's a lot of new art that since you've been here.
Every time I go up there, I come back broke, so that's the problem.
Well, I'm hoping that after all this COVID nonsense is done, that some people will find themselves out here. It's quite a ways. I know it's a distance to come, but if you're going to California or Seattle for a reason, come on down.
And Derek, I have to share. So the first thing that Jerry sold to me was actually a gasogen. And when he called me and asked me if I'd be happen to want it, and I was like, sure. And we negotiated a price. And then he said, well, of course, it's going to be really expensive to ship it because I want to make sure it's packed properly and insured. And I said, oh no, it's not going to cost you $1. I will drive up there. So from Texas, it was a 2.5 day drive to get up there. I got it, spent the night, and then turned around and drove back the next day, 2.5 days just to
But
pick up
remember,
that.
Steve, didn't you also take the statues?
Once I got there, I got you sold me the statues too. So
Two porcelain statues about, I don't know, yay tall, that were very fragile, and there was no way to ever ship them. So Steve drove up here, which I'm still amazed at.
And one of the more prouder things I have is this. If you can see my right behind me, there's a painting of Doyle, and that was by Jeff Decker, who was a BSI and did the cartooning in the Baker Street Journal. And Jerry was kind enough to sell that to me several years ago too. And so,
Hey, I have to keep up with my funds so I can keep buying. So Steve's my dealer.
For those of you who don't know Steve, he's a true Texan in that he drives everywhere.
Everywhere.
Driving to Denny Dobry's was really impressive.
Listen,
yeah, that was a 24-hour straight drive to get to Denny's last month. So
amazing.
yeah, and Rusty and I drive to New York every year and back. So
Wow. You
Cher,
must
do
like
wanna-
us.
I think Cher's got a question over there. Cher?
I'd like to know, Jerry, what was your profession all your life that you were able to contact all these artists?
Oh, my profession had nothing to do with it. I was in marketing for a software company. Contacting artists, I just don't have any fear of calling anybody. Or Judy and I one year, when we were first married back in New York, we were sitting around her favorite painter. One of her favorite painters is Chagall. And we were just sitting around being kind of silly. And I said, gee, it would be kind of fun to get Marc Chagall to do me an upside down floating Sherlock Holmes. Let's call him. So I knew that he was either in Paris or Israel because he had worked on a book in Israel. And I called France Information to get the phone number from Marc Chagall. Unfortunately, with the language, I didn't work out. But had I got him on the phone, I would have asked him. My thing is, the worst they can say is no. And I've been turned down by about 4 or 5 people. Leroy Neiman didn't like the idea that I called him, and he wasn't very pleasant about it. Who else? Charles Adams. I asked Charles Adams if he would do a Adams Family with some Holmes characters, and he said he would love to, but he just didn't have time to do it. And Maurice Sendak was another one that I called and talked with, and he said he would when he got around to it. Unfortunately, he never got around to it. But on the upside, as with Al Hirschfeld, I got to talk to these people on the phone. So,
Jerry, if I can share too, because I collect autographs of people that have played Sherlock Holmes, and I'm not anywhere close to Jerry, but I have about 700 original autographs from people. And I reach out to them the same way with Jerry. I'm not shy. I will send them, messages through Facebook. I'll email them. I've actually called a few people.
Yeah.
And what you find is the overwhelming majority of it love to hear from somebody that truly does collect something that you want from them.
absolutely.
What they are worried about is people that want it just to turn around and try to sell it on eBay or make money off it. But
Yeah, eBay is
They
a
truly think
double-edged
that.
sword.
right, but if
eBay-
they do think that you really want to collect it, they've always been real friendly.
Yeah, I haven't ever had too much problem. There's been 2 or 3, like I said, Leroy Neiman and 1 or 2 others who were just not super pleasant about it. But overall, even if they turned me down and said no for whatever reason, they were always very pleasant about it and appreciated my contacting them. They understood why I wanted it, and I would always explain the collection to them and so on. But if you don't ask, you don't get. And I did the same with my baseball collection. I have multitudes of signed Yankee baseballs, and I'm not afraid to, in the old days, look them up. You can't do it anymore, but you used to be able to look them up, get phone numbers for their homes and call them and talk to them. So that just carried over into my book collecting and art collecting.
Sherry, got a question from Larry.
Well, I just have, I have a portfolio of lithographs of Howard Chaykin
Sure.
illustrating A Study in Scarlet. I was wondering maybe if you had the originals or something, or if you have other Harry Chaykin work.
I think I have one by Chaykin. I'd have to go back and look through it. I think I do have one of Howard Chaykin. I know the portfolio. I used to own the portfolio,
All right.
but so I know his work. Yeah, he's very good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't put up much Sherlock Holmes stuff on my walls, but I do have his portfolio framed
Yeah,
on my wall downstairs near my collection. I really do enjoy those. So
well, he's a great artist.
yeah,
Always liked his work.
yeah, I love all the comic books illustrators that you have. I know, obviously, especially Eisner, and that's just really amazing to me. I'm a big Spirit fan too, from way
Oh,
back,
yeah.
and Contract with God, and a lot of Eisner's books. I also have, and just to have them.
Well, he's, as I said, for me, he's one of the Mount Olympus
Yeah,
gods of comic art.
yeah, it's really great. Okay.
Jerry, did I see you had a Chuck Jones in your collection as well?
Yeah, I called up Chuck and asked him if he would do, because of Deduce, you say, with the Shropshire slasher. I think it's, no, I can't remember where it is. It's on one of the walls down here, and I take too long to find it, but he sent me back a pencil drawing of Daffy and Porky as Holmes and Watson from Deduce, you say, and he signed it Chuck Jones, the Shropshire slasher. So yeah, he was great to talk to. Just a really interesting guy. We had a really nice conversation. Did you find it? My
Jerry?
emissary is looking. Yes.
Jerry, what are you on the market for today? What are you looking for?
Say again. I'm sorry.
What are you looking for today?
Anything.
Anything?
It's getting harder and harder now because unfortunately, a lot of comic book artists are using computers to draw it on. Oh, here you go. I don't know if you can see this. Can you see it?
It would be kind of cat.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, that looks cool. Nice.
If you make me, I guess, I don't know if you put it. I don't know.
I can see it. You switch to speaker.
Yeah, I switched to
Speaker view.
speaker.
Speaker view. If you go up to view and switch to speaker view,
And
you'll
it
see.
just says, oh, yeah, for speaker view. Wait,
Oh, it is a speaker.
No, it may not you, everybody else. I don't know about.
oh, anyway, it's
Not you.
inscribed for Jerry Deduce, you say, Daffy, Sherlock, Duck and Porky, Dr. Watson, Pig, Sherlock Jones, 1983 is when he did it. The Shropshire Slasher. So,
I wonder if the proliferation of answering machines has made it harder for you to.
of what? I didn't quite hear you.
I wonder if the proliferation of answering machines has made it harder for you
Oh,
to get in touch.
well, it's harder to get in contact with a lot of these artists now. You have to do it a lot of times through Facebook or whatever, social media. It's just, you can't just call them up anymore. It doesn't work that way. And like I
And
said,
they get back.
a lot of them now are doing computer generated, and I don't like computer generated art at all. I don't like computer generated animation. For me, the grand old men of Disney were the greatest animators, and I'd put them up against any computer generation any day. If you go back and look at Snow White or any of the early Disney, the animation is unbelievable. Every blade of grass moves, everything, and computers just can't do that.
Gary, have you ever met a Disney cartoonist named Nancy Beeman?
Nancy Beeman?
Hmm.
No. I don't
She
know.
trained under the 9 Old Men.
Ah,
Let me put you in touch with her. I think you'd love her stuff.
oh, that'd be awesome.
Hmm.
The 9 Old Men of Disney were the best of the best.
Mhm.
Nothing like
And while
it.
I'm talking to you, can I ask you kind of indelicate question?
Sure.
When you deaccessioned those steels, which ones did you get rid of?
Oh, boy, it's a long time ago now. It's over 40 years ago. One was the only drawing of Martha Hudson, Mrs. Hudson, sitting in a rocking chair with knitting needles. One was done for the 39 Hound film. It was a preliminary drawing of Holmes and Watson over the body of Selden.
Mhm.
One was from Tor Bridge. It was Holmes seated across the table from Neil Gibson, the Gold King. And is that 4? I can't remember.
That's 3.
3. Well, the 4th one is the one I kept, Musgrave Ritual.
Yeah, who wouldn't keep it? It's beautiful.
And I can't remember the 5th one. I'm surprised I remembered all of them.
Well, that's okay, because you only mentioned getting rid of 3 of them, so now you're up to 5.
I had 5. I owned
Mhm.
5 and I sold 4.
Uh,
And those 4 are now in Minnesota because they were sold to Alan Mackler.
Ah,
So they went to Minnesota when he bequeathed his collection.
I loved him. I mean,
Well,
moving to
well,
Minnesota because it was cooler was just an amazing idea he had.
well, I'll tell you the quick story. When I was trying to get the Paget, I had to sell all 4 steels at the same time. I couldn't just sell 1 or 2 because I wouldn't have had enough money and I'd lose the steels. So I finally had 4 individuals who were each going to buy one. 3 of them dropped out at the last minute. They just said they couldn't do it. So I called Alan and I said, Alan, I'm sorry, but I can't sell you the one that you wanted because I had to sell all 4 at the same time. He said, and at that time, no one knew that he had inherited a fortune of money. No one knew that at all. And of course, you knew Alan, you would never think he had inherited a lot of money. But he said, well, I'll just buy all 4 of them. So he was my white knight. And he bought all 4, and we made the deal for the Paget with the dealer that I was working with.
Well, if you ever went to Alan's home and saw his book collection, especially of the stuff on gypsies and the Rom, it was you knew the man had money he didn't have time to unfold, but that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But he was wound up to be my white knight.
Jerry, unfortunately, we're actually a little over time.
It's
I
fine.
got it. No, do not apologize at all. I think I could say if we, we have to have parameters of time, but I think a lot of us could probably stay on for another 3 or 4 hours with you. This has just been fantastic. I really appreciate it. I want another round of virtual applause for Jerry. Just what you've done, collecting all that Sherlockian artwork and preserving it is just astounding. And I have to say, we all appreciate it. I'm a bit tongue-tied, to be honest with you.
Well, come on out and see it in person.
Oh, I'm going to. There's no doubt.
I'll even take the pageant off the wall so you can hang on to it.
Ah,
I did that for Charles.
I know. I saw Charles's picture. I told Charles I was jealous when I saw it.
Well, if you make it to Portland, you don't have to be. I'll do the same for you.
Hey, Jerry, how far out the door was Charles before you taught him?
Well, my cat is trained to kill, so. So is my wife.
Paget. You named your cat
Hello there.
Paget.
Yes,
Hello
that's
there.
right. We did name her Paget.
Yes, my cat is named Paget. Had we bought two, one would have been Sydney and one would have been Paget. Anyway, well, thank you everybody for listening. I'm glad I didn't bore you.
No, not at all.
I enjoyed seeing it. I enjoyed showing it.
Thank you so much.
Terrific, thank you.
In November, our next meeting, Tom Turley, we're going to read one of his short stories, which is an Irene Adler story. And for those of you who know Tom, it's in the book, The Crowned Heads of Europe, which is a newer book. And he's a phenomenal researcher, does a very good job tying history to Sherlock Holmes. Tom, do you want to say, since I see anything about your story before we read it?
Well, this story actually was published first before the book was. Some of you may have seen it in the MX anthology several years ago. Some of it, like the last story I presented here, is based on Baring Gould. So Derek seems to think it may be controversial, so maybe we can have a good discussion of it. But it's also the shortest story in the book, which, will not tax your time too much to read. So I'll look forward to presenting it next month.
Thank you. And as always, I will send a PDF of the story. That's one of the requirements if an author presents, that we get to read their work. So you guys would get that for free to read. And then, of course, hopefully you would also might be interested in buying Tom's book, which I can highly, highly, highly recommend. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. This was a wonderful time. Jerry, as always, it's great to talk with you. And despite what your fears might be, I think you had us riveted from the minute you started talking to the end here. So thank you.
Well, thanks very much for the invite, and see you soon again.
Thank you. And Jerry, since you're host, when you exit, you'll close the meeting, okay?
Will do. Here we go.
Thank you.